All right, let's go ahead and get started. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. We're excited to share with you our newest program at the Students Basic Needs Coalition, which is the Peer Navigator program, and all about how we piloted it this fall. My name is Leanne Stutz-Wellner, and I am the Director of Campus Programs. And a lot of my responsibilities this fall was actually implementing and evaluating this program. It is hard to believe we are at the end of this journey, but like I said, we're excited to share with you all what we learned. In case you're unfamiliar with who we are the Student Basic Needs Coalition, also known as SBNC. We are a national nonprofit that is dedicated to addressing student basic needs crisis, especially around food insecurity, housing insecurity, and financial insecurity. We do this really by in like three different ways, three different areas. The first being campus education. So working with administrators, working with staff, working with food pantries. The second is through advocacy, and that's at the state and federal level. And then the third, which is my personal favorite, is through SNAP enrollment. Our overall mission is to empower student leaders nationwide to advocate for and implement solutions to the basic needs crisis, fostering a financially inclusive and equitable higher education landscape. So, that first piece is super important. What makes us so unique at SBNC is that we put the student leaders front, front on the grounds doing the work and creating the change and learning how to advocate for themselves. So that really is what I think makes us so unique. When we were starting to create the Peer Navigator program, we of course turned to the research, what's out there. And one of the biggest things we found is that college students, even when they're facing food insecurity and even when they're likely eligible for SNAP, they keep running into these three common roadblocks. So the first is a lack of awareness. So oftentimes students may not even know that SNAP exists, or they may have some sort of misconception about who's eligible. The second roadblock is a lack of knowledge, more specifically when it comes to applying. I'm sure we all can agree that the application is daunting. It is a hassle, it can be complicated, and that's no different for our college students. And then the third, unfortunately, is perceived stigma. So questions like, what will my friends and family think? Am I really deserving of this? Those sorts of issues. So the Peer Navigator program was created really to overcome all of those roadblocks, at least the best that we can. And so the ways we do this is we train peer navigators or student leaders to actually do outreach on their campuses. So it's a remote position in the fact that they get trainings and mentorship remotely, but a lot of what they're doing is actually doing outreach to raise awareness on their campus. They learn how to do this in a destigmatizing way so that they can break down barriers. And a big part of this program is the use of an eligibility screener. So this is like a 3-minute questionnaire that at the end students find out if they're likely eligible or not, which is really useful because a lot of times when students find out they're likely eligible, they're more motivated, right, to go through the application process. So our peer navigators spread the word about this screener, and it seems to really make a difference. Also, the peer navigators assist with the application process. This past cohort, our pilot, I was the one who was doing a lot of the assisting through the application. But as we move forward with our new cohorts, we are going to have the students do that. So that's really awesome and a great opportunity for them to learn some of these, basic skills. We are really excited that we are able to provide a paid, keyword there, paid work-based learning opportunity for our students. Again, this goes back to the heart of who we are as an organization and our mission. Oftentimes in human services or helping professions, students aren't able to get paid internships. I went through that myself when I was in school. So this is a really awesome opportunity to not have students miss out on internship opportunities because, it's not pay for. So here are our program goals. Overarching in a nutshell, we want to develop student leadership and professional skills. This goes back to that work-based learning component. We also want to create more inclusive and supportive campus cultures. And we want to promote campus collaboration, whether that's with SGA or administrators or maybe the food pantry, whatever the case may be. We want our peer navigators collaborating with already the efforts going on in the campus. So, why peer navigators? Well, research shows that the peer to peer model helps to really destigmatize the whole process. As you could imagine, it's oftentimes easier for students to talk to other students about their situation than a staff member or a professor or whoever the case may be. So, we figured why not, this model really fits our mission and our organization anyways. So let's go the peer-to-peer route. Um, our peer navigators are incredibly compassionate. They are driven. They want to make a change on their campus. And so that really is what motivates this whole program. It's really the meat and potatoes of why it's been so successful. The peer navigators in our pilot program, we had over 200 people apply. And so we accepted these 9. They are amazing. They are already committed to social justice issues on their campus before we even met them. They are engaging. They're easy to talk to. They have a great work ethic. But most importantly, I think of all is all of these peer navigators had some sort of lived experience or a lot of knowledge about SNAP and CalFresh when we met them. So that's really what makes our peer navigators so great is that they can share that lived experience with their peers on their campus. They come from a diverse background. We have Ariel, who plays on the college basketball team. We have Mia, who's an RA at UC San Diego. So a lot of different perspectives here, and that worked really great. A few of them are not here because they are in the middle of finals, so be thinking of them. But for the ones who are here, I'm going to let them introduce themselves and say a little bit about why they joined our program. And I think we'll start with Ariel. She's here.
Hi, my name is Ariel Anderson, and I'm a third year student at UC Santa Cruz studying environmental studies and agroecology. And I wanted to be an intern for SBNC because I previously used CalFresh and I saw the ways that it positively impacted me. So being a part of an organization that promotes these resources for other college students is something I think is super important and that I wanted to be a part of.
Okay,
Uh,
hello everyone. I'm Dania Castillo. I am a third year public health major at the University of California, Merced, and I applied to become an intern because this program deeply aligns with my future career goals, and I'm also very passionate about health education.
And hi, everyone. I'm Alex Boyajian. I'm a fourth year history major at Cal State San Marcos. And I was interested in being a peer navigator because it aligns with my career interests in public service. And I also wanted to do something that I could feel proud of and feel like I'm helping out those in my community.
Hi, all. My name is Alana. I am getting my master's in public health, and a main reason why I chose to be an intern at SBNC is because when I was an undergrad, I was unaware of these resources. I was able to get resources from my family, but not knowing that being eligible as a college student and a first generation student, I would definitely want to help advocate those who are in need of resources for future generations.
Hello, everyone. My name is Chelsea Caines. I'm a psychology student at Southwestern College, preparing to apply to graduate school. I applied to this internship because I've always been passionate about community service and the concept of paying it forward, which really aligns with the mission of SBNC. So I saw this as a great opportunity to connect with my peers and help those in need in our local community.
Awesome. Yes, thank you. So a few of the students who couldn't be here today, Ashley and Caleb, they are from UC Riverside, and Gabriel is from UC Merced. So that is a little about them. But we'll hear from more of the peer navigators later on. They'll talk a lot about their experience doing outreach. But first, I want to talk a little bit about the fact that not only were we implementing this pilot program, but we also wanted to dive a little bit deeper and look at some of the outreach strategies and ask ourselves, are they even effective? Like, how many students are we engaging? Does it actually make a difference? Do they go on to sign up for CalFresh? Which, for those of you who may not know, that's what they call a SNAP in California. So you might hear me refer to it both ways. Um, so we set it up where we could evaluate five very specific outreach strategies at the end of it. So I'm going to have Dania take it from here to introduce to you all those five strategies.
Yeah, so jumping right into the outreach strategies that we used, to start off with posters, they are visually engaging printed materials, and this can be very effective because you can strategically place them around campus. So, dormitory areas, libraries, student centers, and classrooms. This is effective because of the high visibility within the students' daily routine and day-to-day routes as well. We also did email campaigns. These are targeted messages via student mailing lists. So the centralized platforms have measurable metrics, which are very effective for us to be able to take track of data as well as be able to calculate like the open rates, which messages formats were effective, and click-through rates as well. We were able to implement the email campaigns through collaborative efforts in collaborating with campus organizations that had already set big mailing lists of students' emails for a wider reach and target audiences. And then moving forward, we also did social media campaign via Instagram. It is a very interactive and engaging platform that many of us have. I use it day to day. And so you're able to share informative posts that you created yourself, images and stories as well. And some effective measures are polls and quizzes, as well as like Q&A boxes to be able to engage directly with the audience. And this also builds a form of community and expands your audience reach. We also had some tabling events. You were able to do these in high traffic campus locations. These are very effective overall because you get more of a face-to-face interaction with students and peers, and you're able to answer their questions directly, share resources, and overall build trust with them as well. So we also had workshops. These are very interactive sessions about the CalFresh benefits. And these are very effective and actually fun as well because you're able to present in detail information and the application steps, and you're able to address and answer myths or clarify requirements face to face with your peers. And also, you get to learn about how to set up an event, how to execute it, what went well, what went wrong, and use that going forward.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, so these five strategies or methods are really the ones that we evaluated throughout this process. Um, so let's talk about the results. What did we do? How did we do over the past 3 months? Well, our nine navigators in California reached over 600 students in total in just 3 months alone. In those 3 months, we know that they've unlocked almost $130,000 of previously unused CalFresh benefits, meaning that students went on after they engaged with our eligibility screener, they continued on to apply and eventually get benefits set up. Of the students that we connected with through outreach, 50% actually applied. 22% report that they are still in process of applying, and 28% did not apply. Of course, I look at that and I'm like, 28%, I got to figure out why that's happening. But we'll get there, and that's something for us to continue to research and dive into moving forward. Um, 43% of the applicants were approved, 31% is unsure. And because that's such a large number, we do believe that the $130,000 in CalFresh benefits, that number is probably going to continue to climb up as students find out if they were approved or not. And then the final, 23% of students were denied after applying. So you might be wondering which outreach strategy was most effective. Well, I can tell you that this is a breakdown of how many students engaged by outreach strategy. So for example, posters, of all the students we reached, 35% of them found it through a poster on campus. That was by far the largest. Emails, 24% of students found out about our eligibility screener through those campaigns. 10% of students found out about it through a social media, aka Instagram. And then for workshops and tabling events, these were the lowest with 8% and 5% of students. I will note, though, however, we didn't do a whole ton of workshops and tabling events over the past 3 months for reasons we'll get into later. So we kind of knew that we weren't reaching as many students that way, which would explain why it's a lower percentage. Most interestingly, though, is when we set out on this, we didn't necessarily think to evaluate or look at word of mouth. Thankfully, we had an epiphany to put it in our survey and to start evaluating it here at the end. And what we found out is the students we reached, 18% of them actually found out about it through word of mouth. So it was really cool to see that, like, hey, maybe one student saw it on a poster, and then they continued that domino effect of telling their friends. So, really interesting stuff. So, conversion rates. So, which strategy actually encouraged students to go on and complete the application? That's really what we want to know, right? Because it's one thing to reach students and they see the eligibility screener, that's great, but we need to push them through the process. And so we looked at that as well. And what we found is that 77% of students who found out about the eligibility screener through social media did go on to apply. So that was the highest. I have speculations for why all of these are the way they are, but of course they're just speculations. I believe that maybe students were already on their phones scrolling. It's a lot easier to just go ahead and continue that process with less probably interruptions, but who knows? The next one, word of mouth, that is 72% of students went on to complete it. I speculate that when you hear it from a trusted source, it kind of gives you this reassurance that it's an okay thing to do and probably overcomes and helps a lot with that roadblock of perceived stigma. So those two were the highest conversion rates we had. Next was tabling events, which 66% of students went on to apply after interacting with a tabling event. Tabling events we hosted, it was very one-on-one. Students were able to ask questions, even get a little bit of assistance with the application. And that probably boosted their confidence and their own ability to complete the application process. Our three lowest were workshops with 44% of students going on to apply, emails at 43%, and then posters at 42%. So only 42% of the students who engaged with a poster went on to apply, which is interesting, right? Because as we see back here, our biggest engagers were posters and emails, but it didn't necessarily translate into students actually applying, or at least not as much as some other methods. Let me get some water, sorry. Okay, so another thing we did was we had a few focus groups, and we also did some interviews one-on-one with our peer navigators to really understand what their perceptions are of these different outreach strategies. This brought up a ton of interesting information. In fact, we've written, I think it's like a 10-page report at this point of all of our findings from the outreach evaluation. If any of you are interested in it, we are more than happy and willing to share it. But this is just a brief overview for you. So with social media, students were most drawn to vibrant visuals and vibrant colors, which is really not a big surprise, aren't we all? But they also appreciated culturally relevant content. So, for example, if there's something going viral on TikTok or there's some sort of funny skit or dance, when student or peer navigators were able to incorporate that, it did help with engagement. They also like personalized touches. So the students in the focus groups talked a lot about how it was nice to be able to see like the peer navigators' faces and seeing them, who the person is behind the screen, I guess you could say. There was suggestions of adding interactive elements like polls and quizzes. And students, to be quite frank, they really wanted posts also that were just practical, like that answered questions that they had, that helped them apply, that gave them instructions, just things that really were pretty straightforward. So I thought that was interesting to note as well. For posters in our focus groups, we spend a lot of time talking about designs and language and I don't know, even where the bread is placed in this one, for example. And this is an older poster that needs to be updated a bit, but we still use it. And it was one that students preferred most. They liked the design of it. They liked the colors. They liked the word to visual ratio. Um, but another big topic of conversation was, do we actually put on these posters the word SNAP or CalFresh? Because we've, as an organization, have been on the fence about whether that would deter students or not, or if it really doesn't matter. And what we found, at least from these students in California, is that they wanted to say CalFresh. The reason being is because students would look at this, a few of them, and they thought, hey, this is another resource for me to access. They already had CalFresh, and they thought this was a whole nother sort of thing that would help them save money on groceries. And so they were kind of disappointed when they realized, oh, it's CalFresh. um, so they really said that, look, it doesn't create any sort of stigma, at least not on their campuses, and that they would appreciate if it just flat out said what it was. So good to know. They also recommended putting posters in unique areas since the bulletin boards can get overwhelming and they kind of fade to the background. One person suggested the bathroom, and I don't think it's a bad idea if you can hang things in there. Um, but of the posters, like I said, we reached the most students that way, even if it didn't convert to them filling out the application. One of our peer navigators, Ariel, by far got the most clicks at UC Santa Cruz. And so I wanted to give her a few minutes to talk about what her approach was and how she made that happen.
Yeah, so on my campus, I don't know if anybody knows like the setup of UC Santa Cruz, but it's a very like hilly campus, like in the forest on a hill. So a lot of people ride the bus because it's hard to like get around since it's so steep. And there's probably about like 30 bus stops on like around campus. And I always notice like throughout the day at like peak class times, there's probably like about like over 100 kids like at each bus stop, and there's a bulletin board at each bus stop as well. So I basically put like two posters on each bulletin board like at every bus stop around campus, and like probably over the course of like every day there's definitely like thousands of kids that like or students that like see the posters at the bus stop, and I didn't expect like that many people to click on it, but I guess it ended up working out well because, like I said, there's always so many students at the bus stops throughout the day, and they probably saw the posters there.
Yeah, so interesting. You never know really what may work or not work on your campus for sure. But I think in the focus group, I remember them mentioning elevators, which kind of makes sense with the bus stops whenever you're waiting, right? You're in transit, and you have a few moments to spare. So who knows? But great job, Ariel. That is really awesome to see and a great idea for other schools to utilize if they can. So the next outreach strategy was email campaigns. So 100% of students prefer to get emails from trusted sources like professors or peers. And not just any peer, but like someone they actually have a class with or someone that they interact with as part of a student club, for example. So that was really interesting, but not necessarily surprising. There was a lot of conversation around spam emails and also scams. Um, because this is something that asks for a lot of personal, identification, and we're talking about getting free money, it can be seen as scammy. And so students said that there's a very fine balance to walk when when you're emailing about this to get students to actually engage with it and not think it's a scam. So one of the things I thought about and we talked about in the focus group was how about your like Canvas or whatever learning platform you use? There's typically like a direct message feature in it. And so we talked about how students actually would prefer to receive a message through Canvas than they would through their student email. And I will never forget one student saying that she has 0 unread messages in Canvas, but over 1,000 unread in their email. And I was like, wow, okay, so that is a very big difference and there was a lot of chuckles and nods when that was said. So I can only assume that a lot of people can relate to that. So we decided to put it to the test. Chelsea, who it was at Southwestern College. I also teach at Southwestern College in the psychology department. So I said, let me try to send our email template out through Canvas to my students, which is about 120. And 28% of my students did actually, click the eligibility screener and go on to engage with that process. So honestly, that was something that took me 5 minutes. It was such a easy thing to do, but had a huge impact for students. And I think it goes back to what they were saying in the focus group of wanting to get this sort of information from a trusted source or someone you already have a relationship with. Um, let's see here. Also, they want emails to be detailed, but not too long, because if they're too long, they're going to skim over it. So that was not really a big surprise, but useful information nonetheless. This next one, tabling events. So they did best when they were in high traffic areas. We also provided for our peer navigators little goodies to give out, which was a big draw. That really is what would get people to come up to the table. We had fidget toys, candy, ramen, water, stickers, and you'll hear more about that when Chelsea speaks here in a minute. But another thing that students appreciated and what drew them in was a professional setup. So Chelsea was able to get, these nice professional tablecloths at each of the sites she was at, and that really seemed to have made a difference. Also, just being able to converse with someone who was non-stigmatizing and could answer their questions was really beneficial. And finally, workshops. So our success with workshops was definitely all over the place. We had one that was in Zoom and no one showed up. And then we had another one that was really successful at UC San Diego because I guess it was informal. It was sponsored by Wingstop, so there was food there, which is a big draw. But the way Mia had it set up was a come and go. So you could come, you eat, chat. You don't even have to talk about CalFresh if you don't want to. And then you have there the screener available, and also Mia was available to answer any questions. So it's just super informal. And that seemed to work really, really well. It also aligns with what we found in the focus groups of students saying that they'd rather engage just in a natural conversation in their natural interactions and hear about CalFresh from a peer than it kind of be forced on them, if that makes sense. Our peer navigators noted that, interactive elements like games is really helpful, and that also collaborating with student clubs to kind of join forces and to reach more students was effective. So overall, for our students who went on to apply for SNAP and get approved, after the fact, now that they're receiving benefits, this is some of what they've reported. So 74% of these students reported decreased levels of stress. 74% of them reported an increased ability to focus on schoolwork. 79% reported that the amount of food consumed had increased, so they're eating more. And then 85% reported that their levels of worry about having enough food had decreased. Um, these may not be a surprise to any of you all who are here, but it is still great to see that this is making a huge impact in these students' lives, and it really does make a difference. So now I'm going to turn it over to Chelsea from Southwestern College. She's going to talk to you a little bit about her experience in the program and what she's been up to.
Thank you, Dr. Studs. So, I am a student at Southwestern College, which is a community college district here in southern San Diego County. Southwestern's largest campus is located in Chula Vista, California, and is supported by three satellite higher education centers in National City, Otay Mesa, and San Isidro, as well as Crown Cove Aquatic Center in Coronado. The college consists of 7 academic schools of study with over 300 programs, including associate degree, certificate, transfer, professional, technical, career advancement, and continuing education programs, the most popular of which are nursing, business administration, biology, and psychology. Of the over 25,000 students enrolled in the 2022 to 23 academic year, 55.5% identified as female, about 42.8% identified as male, and 0.7% identified as non-binary. Students younger than 25 comprised 63.3% of the student population, followed by those aged 25 to 39, which were 24.1% of students, and those aged 40 and above, comprising 12.7% of the student population. Over two-thirds of the student body identified as Latinx, with Caucasian, Asian, and African American students representing the next three largest ethnic demographics, respectively. And finally, over 58% of Southwestern College students received some form of financial aid in 2021 to 2022. So here on the slide, I've included a few photos of my outreach activities that I conducted over the semester. Pictured here are some of my tabling events that I hosted at our higher education centers in National City, as well as the Instagram posts and stories that I used along the way to advertise those events, and also just spread the word about reducing stress by helping students out with food aid. Okay, so my experience, overall, I had a wonderful experience throughout the internship this semester. I learned a lot and it challenged me while also helping me to grow professionally. The outreach methods that I found to be most successful were hosting events at satellite campuses and speaking to classes through virtual and in-person presentations. What helped was coordinating directly with the faculty at each of our higher education centers, our satellite campuses. They helped with executing tabling events and reserving those rooms where I could reach the most students. I also received positive responses from professors who allowed me to join their classes on Zoom and give 10 to 15-minute presentations about CalFresh resources. So I prepared PowerPoints with some basic eligibility requirements and how they can get connected to those resources. On the other hand, what might not have worked so well was placing posters directly on campus, which proved to be most challenging due to certain restrictions that I came across that were placed by the school's Basic Needs Center, which that department centralizes a lot of the SNAP activity and announcements and resources. So to circumvent this, I partnered with off-campus organizations and relied on other clubs' social media presence to further our reach, cross-promoting and collaborating with other organizations, supporting each other's initiatives and drawing attention to events. So getting creative and looking elsewhere at businesses that were across the street from campus, for example. What helped along the way were targeted emails and social media. So I utilized targeted emails to professors, club advisors and other faculty explaining the mission of SBNC and asking them to forward these resources to their students. So, like was mentioned earlier, certain mailing lists or through Canvas. So, emails and announcements on Instagram posts and stories help to advertise outreach events and spread the word. Okay, so some of the lessons that I learned and tips that I can offer from my experience are know the landscape, be aware of agreements that are already set in place between the school's basic needs department or student activities department in conjunction with government entities that might restrict how much correspondence may be sent out to students. Starting early, start establishing SBNC student organizations or making those connections with clubs and organizations several weeks in advance, cross-promoting and collaboration, supporting other organizations on social media or in your own newsletters to encourage that cross-promotion and expand your reach so that you can kind of share an audience and grow each, utilizing directories. Seeking out faculty directories and club advisor charters, for example, on our school's website, using the connections that I had directly in the classes that I was enrolled in for people's contact information, tagging on to high visibility events, so taking advantage of campus-wide club fairs at the beginning of the semester and highly advertised events such as Hunger and Homelessness Awareness Week campaigns. So this semester, our Basic Needs Department was willing to unofficially partner with us and spread the word to a lot of the student body to certain tabling events. A big one that I experienced over the past few months was getting creative to work around roadblocks or challenges that you face along the way. So if I was met with restrictions on campus regarding posting posters and having tabling events on our main campus, for example, I chose to collaborate with off-campus organizations and businesses like storefronts across the street or in the local neighborhood, as well as at our satellite campuses. And finally, making events as accessible as possible, setting up tabling and workshop events in high foot traffic areas central to the campus, such as near our student services department and right next to our food pantries, for example, where peers might already be seeking food assistance. Some of the skills that I gained over the past few months were a lot centered around event planning. So, learning the best time to schedule these tabling events and where to place them, who are the contacts that I needed to make to reach the highest amount of students. Maybe hosting them in the middle of the weekday so that students on their breaks could pass by the table that I set up. Community engagement, really learning how to utilize social media as a tool, as well as developing those in-class and inter-club relationships as well. I further sharpened my communication skills, verbal, written, and especially public speaking. The best way that I could think about it was just do something that makes you uncomfortable. It's okay, you're speaking to peers, and they were very welcoming and receptive. So, networking and collaboration with campus leaders and faculty, student orgs, and community partners like those external businesses that I was lucky to partner with, public health outreach and community advocacy, helping my peers and those in the community. I sharpened my time management skills by being required to plan ahead and anticipate registration deadlines or corresponding with the facility teams at our higher education centers to reserve equipment and tabling areas, preparing for the next outreach activity that we were responsible for in our schedule, and of course, overall, a more in-depth understanding of SNAP and CalFresh resources, really learning about the eligibility criteria, the specifics and nuances, how the benefits worked, the application process, and troubleshooting any questions that they might have had in their own experience. So I also wanted to close out with a success story, an experience that I'd like to share. Throughout the internship, I reached out to several professors in the campus directory requesting to provide a brief presentation about the CalFresh program. And one in particular who responded invited me to present to her virtual art class one morning. As a result of this professor's welcoming and enthusiastic introduction, the students were actively engaged in the presentation and very receptive to the information and so kind. What really stood out to me was that this professor also shared her own personal experiences with SNAP, growing up, explaining to us that her parents had received food stamp benefits throughout her childhood and still receive food aid today. So, her providing that personal testimony was a powerful tool in breaking through the stigma associated with receiving SNAP benefits, promoting awareness of this valuable resource, and most of all, encouraging her students to be open to having these conversations about potential struggles that we all face in obtaining basic needs. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chelsea, for giving us some insight and a look into your past 3 months. We appreciate it. Wonderful job. We will pass it now to Cal State San Marcos, where we have Alex and Alana.
All right, thank you, Dr. Stutz. Yeah, my name is Alex, and me and along with Alana did our outreach at Cal State San Marcos. So Cal State San Marcos is a four-year university located in San Marcos, obviously, which is in the North County of San Diego, and they also have an extended learning campus in Temecula, California. The campus has recently been breaking its enrollment records, and as of fall 2023, enrollment totaled at over 15,400 students. Of those over 15,000 students, 59.3% identified as female, 40.4 as male, and 0.3% as non-binary. And a majority of the students identified as Latinx, with Caucasian, Asian and Pacific Islander, and African American being the next three largest racial demographics, respectively. Cal State San Marcos offers 43 different bachelor degree programs, and some of the most popular are business, kinesiology, psychology, and computer science. The campus also has one of the highest veteran student ratios of the entire Cal State system, and also has a high volume of first generation college students. And about 50% of those students are between the ages of 17 and 22. So the campus also has many students well into their adult lives. So displayed are some of the pictures that I took when doing my outreach at Cal State San Marcos. So on the left were some of the brochures that I would leave during my short workshops that I would give at club meetings and other events that I can get into. And I would leave brochures there just in case somebody wasn't particularly comfortable with maybe raising their hand and having me answer their questions, just in case there was still some of that perceived stigma we talked about earlier. And the other two pictures are some of the posters that I put up throughout the campus. And as you can see, there's some bulletin boards. They're pretty much placed all across the campus. And so it made it really easy to put up posters in high traffic areas where we can really get some good engagement.
So, in our experience, we mostly took advantage of social media, specifically Instagram. We kind of got not that much response from emails, to be honest. Alex and I try to contact our previous professors, spreading the word out. And then we try to contact organizations at the campus so we can do future tabling events or workshops. But honestly, those were not as a good response as we thought it would be. And it's difficult for us to do tabling events on campus because you need to have an affiliation already. And within the 3 month span, we weren't able to do so. So, what we leaned towards was social media. So, I started following multiple accounts related to CSUSM. And we had, I would say, a quarter of organizations follow us back. But then there was 10% of organizations that you actually have to DM them. They have to look at it first and then they'll respond. And that's how we got a lot of great feedback from organizations. We interacted with them either by reposting their stuff that they wanted us to post, or they would repost our brochures, posters on their stories, or even on their actual pages. And then what I would have done is I contact the organizations asking if Alex can come and present a mini workshop, just letting students know of the organization and what we promote. And so that was actually a great turnaround. He was able, some organizations, they don't have actual set organized meetings. So he was able to drop off the brochures and posters. And so we would give information, like Alex said, he would come and provide that information, leave brochures, and then we had success putting up some posters around campus, like the previous slide showed of those images. Tips and tricks that we learned was specifically marketing, building those connections, especially building connections to people who you have no idea who's behind that screen. We were able to introduce ourselves and explain our purpose and outreach. Um, we were as well able to learn how to make social media posts, especially and engage with others through either posting stories or posting content through Canva, being creative, having that, getting people's feedback every 3 to 4 weeks, seeing what they liked, and then doing better on our next social media post. And then the last thing we learned was how to actually utilize social media. And so, since we just started Instagram, maybe moving forward, we can look into other social media platforms as well and expand.
Yeah, so some of the skills that we gained by participating were particularly for me, public speaking, because I had to get up in front of a lot of the times a decent amount of people, not just students as well. Sometimes there would also be other guest speakers there, so that was also pretty nice. Time management was definitely a skill that we had to practice, just because there's so much that you have to do in order to have successful outreach, and definitely being on top of your schedule and just being able to have enough time to allocate to each of your events is definitely really important. Organization, also a big part of that. Alana had messaged a lot of clubs over the course of our outreach, and just like we had to make a separate notepad just in order to be able to organize all of our information, just to be able to effectively be able to give the rest of our outreach. We also were provided with some outreach knowledge. I particularly didn't know some of the things that I previously to the outreach didn't really know some of the things. So I've also been taught a lot about the CalFresh system, and it's also taught us about communication and networking, because we've had to reach out to so many different faculty members and clubs. So it's really helped us build a solid foundation for getting to being able to get our foot in the door. And for a success story, we were able to connect with a few clubs particularly well, one of them being the Human Resource Management Clubs. And at that meeting, I was able to give a short presentation about CalFresh, and there were a few students who were interested, and I was able to answer a few questions. And there was also a guest speaker who had previously worked in HR at casinos, and now he's the lead talent acquisition specialist at UC San Diego Health, who actually gave a presentation after me and was able to take a couple brochures from me and give me positive feedback on my short presentation.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing some of the details of what you did at the two different campuses. Another aspect of this program is creating a toolkit, and we are in the process of finalizing that now, but I'm going to let Ariel tell us a little bit about it.
Yeah, so our toolkit, it was created by all the peer navigators, and basically within the specific sections of my toolkit, we all like worked on it. But I was like assigned 4 sections, and I added about like 3 pages of common SNAP terms with frequently known ones such as defining SNAP, EBT, and benefits and more. I also added some more like niche acronyms that in terms that are common in the SNAP world but might not be known to the general public. And additionally, I outlined each document that a student would need to have prepared once they applied for SNAP, along with national resources and hotlines for people that don't live in California and but want more information on it.
Great, thank you. So yeah, the toolkit is meant to be something that's useful for future peer navigators, but also for staff and administrators who are in this line of work. There's going to be a lot of templates in there for people to use if they'd like. Some examples include what Ariel was just speaking on, but also like FAQ pager and different social media templates, things like that. Also in the toolkit, it has a bunch of different stories and more information about all of the outreach strategies and what we found along the way from the peer navigators' perspectives. And yeah, I think that covers it. But that will be sent to all the attendees here for you to have after 2025, after we take a nice long break and reconvene next year. Here is, a look at what the cover looks like and the table of contents. Um, a lot of good stuff in there. And again, most of this was done by our peer navigators. So it's really awesome that it's from their perspective and they were able to take ownership of this and make it their own. Here's a look at some more of it. So I think that wraps up everything we have, but we did want to offer some time for some question and answers. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to unmute and ask, and just let us know who you're asking, or if it's a general question, or you could also put them in the chat as well.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. Sorry. I'm from the opposite side of the country and trying to learn Snap as my role at a college, and I'm wondering how different it would be from CalFresh to Snap in different states and how it can apply differently, because I'm running into a lot of roadblocks with any student being eligible for Snap. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were on that.
Yeah, for context, what state are you in?
Pennsylvania.
Okay. Yeah, so we work with a few schools in Pennsylvania, and we're happy to help you out as well if you want to schedule a time to meet. But I feel like what works at one campus, even within the same state, like if California, for example, may not work at all at a different campus. It's really dependent on your culture on campus, what resources you have available, what's already in place, and what the rules and boundaries are with that. So it's kind of hard to say, but we as an organization are always willing, free of charge, to speak with you and figure out some sort of game plan if that's helpful. Happy to meet.
Yeah, that'd be probably
Yeah.
really helpful.
Awesome. Yeah. If you want to throw or message me your email, I can set that up with you. Great question, though. Any other questions?
Oh, looks like one just popped up in the chat, but I was just going to repeat the message that I put in the chat that as a newer peer navigator, I'm very excited for the toolkit.
Yes, yes, we are very excited as well. Hopefully, it'll be useful for you, Sophia, as you continue. So, Sophia is part of our second cohort that started late this fall and will be continuing on through May. So, they really are going to dive deep into their outreach this spring. So, it looks like someone asked, how is all the data info collected? The numbers are impressive. So, couple of different ways, both qualitative and quantitative. So, one of the biggest things we did from the get-go was attach to each outreach strategy a very specific QR code and URL that could be linked back to that strategy. So, for example, all the posters had a unique scan. And so on our end, we could see each time it was scanned and clicked. So that's one way that we track the different strategies. Another was through a survey. So every student who engaged in some sort of way with our eligibility screener, we had their emails because that's part of, they share that with us if they feel comfortable. And we then emailed them a follow-up survey. So we found out a lot of information from that, specifically like had they applied, were they approved, how has that impacted their life, so on and so forth. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we had multiple focus groups, and we also had one-on-one interviewing with our peer navigators to gather all of that qualitative information. Yeah, great question. Hopefully that answers. Let's see. Any others? I think there's a hand. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much to the students for all the amazing work that they're leading. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge. I had a question about like the stipend amount. If there is a stipend amount, and also like the number of hours the students are expected to support their initiatives on campus.
Yes, awesome question. So with our pilot program, so this particular cohort of students, it was, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, it was 2 hours a week and it was $20 an hour. Is that right, guys? I'd have to like do the math for the breakdown. But
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah, that
okay.
was correct.
Correct. Okay, cool. And that varies depending on our funding, but we always try to pay at the very least like minimum wage or a minimum amount of 15, no matter where the student's at in the country, $15 an hour. Our cohort that's going on now, they are spending 5 hours a week for their weekly outreach. It's a little bit more intense now that we've gone through the pilot and we've sort of changed the program and we've added different trainings and all of that stuff. So a few more hours a week. Other questions? Okay, someone asked, is it a set schedule? So yes and no. There are certain aspects of it that are set, like our group meetings or our group trainings. They typically are, though, the same day of the week and the same set time. The rest of the actual outreach, though, for the most part, is super flexible, meaning that students can do it on their own time that is most convenient for them on their campus. Because again, right, every campus is so different of when students are there the most and that sort of thing. So there's flexibility, yet some structure. Also, feel free if you have any questions for the specific peer navigators. Let's see, for the students, have any new doors? Oh, okay, yeah, so great for you guys, peer navigators. Have any new doors opened since you became a peer navigator or since you have gone through our program this fall?
Hi, so for me personally, not necessarily any doors like directly, but at the one of the presentations that I gave earlier, sorry, I'll turn my cam on 1 second. Um, like I said, I gave a presentation and somebody that presented after me was, well into their career. And I actually stuck around after that, after they gave me positive feedback, just to see their own presentation about being a talent acquisition specialist. And so I was like asking questions throughout that, and he gave me his card and everything, and just he asked me to get into contact with him once I graduated. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's awesome. That's exactly like what we hope for. And sometimes, the benefits may not be seen right away, but with time and space, I think a lot of things you might notice, doors opening for sure. Great question, though. Any other questions for our peer navigators? I'm sure they're happy to answer. Okay. What was the biggest challenge as a peer navigator?
I'll be happy to speak on that. So, for my personal experience, one of the biggest challenges was trying to work around the restrictions on campus. So, even before our semester started, we received the resources from our supervisors in the internship, and we attempted to, I think a common experience was trying to establish the Student Basic Needs Coalition as a student org on campus. I think as Alana touched on, that process took a lot of time, and um, there was also conflicting efforts for Southwestern, for example, with our student basic needs department. So, since they had an agreement with San Diego County as far as collecting data and seeing how much traffic they got with their own correspondence, I was denied a lot of the time with certain efforts to post these posters with our QR codes or send out communication to as many students as possible. So, I believe other peer navigators also experience that, but trying to do things while following their policies on campus, but also trying to reach outside of that and work with other established groups was a little bit challenging.
Yeah, thank you for speaking on that, Chelsea. And I would definitely say that was probably one of our biggest challenges overall, just because California has already done a lot of amazing work and has a lot of established programs on campuses. And so navigating where do we fit in? Where does this program fit in? How can we collaborate? It took time, and we only had 3 months. So definitely something we learned with the second cohort. Like Sophia, who I know is here, she works very closely with her campus food pantry already. So there's this sort of great spirit of collaboration, and it's already established, so it doesn't take that time when we have such limited time to make that work. So yeah, definitely a big lesson learned for us. I think I saw, was it Sophia? Did you raise your hand?
I did raise my hand, but Chelsea answered my question within her response.
Great. Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, last call for questions. You can also feel free to email us if you have any questions. I will put my email in the chat. Let's see here. Following this, we'll send this week the recording, and if you are interested in our evaluation report, we can send that as well. Like I said, the toolkit won't be ready until beginning of next year. If you would like to get involved, please feel free, or if you are an administrator or staff or student and you're interested in being a part of this program, we are interested in having you. We are able to work with certain campuses and join forces to get funding. We are currently working with Portland Community College and their peer navigators who are established through the food pantry. Um, so yeah, we can really get creative here. There's a lot of flexibility. So feel free to scan that and fill out our campus partner interest form. You can also email me. That is in the chat. Give that a few seconds. Other than that, that wraps up our final presentation. We really, again, appreciate you all coming out and learning from our peer navigators and hearing about their experience. Please feel free to keep in touch, and we'll see you all soon. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.